could certainly do that.
No, that's good. Hi guys, welcome to Truth Talkin Thursday. This is Jim. I'm Jane. We're doing this a little bit later at night here, and it's a beautiful night. It's starting to cool off a little bit. It's quite warm these past couple days. And Jim was just talking about a sermon that he heard that really kind of struck a nerve with him in regards to anger and vengeance. And if there is a difference, what the difference is, and are we able to work through it as individuals, as people? Are we conscious enough of our own selves and our emotions to be aware enough to I guess to have it have an impact on our lives? So, Jim, in your opinion, what is the difference between anger and vengeance? And I'm saying what is the difference because I know you think there's a difference. It was very clear to you, and the way you described it earlier was really, really beautiful.
Well, thank you, Jane. Yes, I do think that there's a difference, and it was a very kind of eye-opening experience hearing that, hearing this whole thing described in the way that it was described to me. So quickly, I see a lot of troubled people out there in the course of my work with other people. The idea around anger, forgiveness, and vengeance is usually a theme of some kind in sort of the monologue of the client to me. So I mean, I understand how prevalent it is in our society today. We seem to function and feed on the energy that's created by anger, but more so, as I've come to understand it in the last 24 hours, more so by the idea of the vengeance that's attached to it in some way. And anger to me is an emotion that can be, and not always is, but can be a very strong motivator for change. I will not let that happen to me again. I will not allow that person to do that to me again or say those things again. I can be angry about that because I'm disappointed, I'm embarrassed. There's all kinds of reasons. There's 101 different faces of anger, and you can go on the internet and get them all. But the point is, we can become angry about that sort of thing and be energized, be motivated to make some changes so that those things don't happen anymore.
As long as we're not taking that and in the back of our minds holding on to a thought that someday you're going to pay.
Yes. And
that's vengeance.
That's where vengeance comes into play. And vengeance is there's nothing that can come good from vengeance. There are things that can be positive out of feeling angry. But like Jane said, you can't use your anger to hurt somebody else and have something positive come out of it. It just doesn't work that way. Anger is an internal thing, and it can drive you to change. It can drive you to motivate you to change. That's basically how I quit smoking. I got angry. I got angry at the fact that I was paying $6 a pack.
And now it's like 10 or 15. I don't even know.
I don't care if it goes to $110 a pack. I could care less. But so anger, I used anger to motivate me. Vengefulness and revenge is a constant negative spending of energy toward a goal that cannot be positive in any way, shape, or form. That's the big difference. There's nothing that can come good out of vengeance, but it's there constantly in our minds. If we're vengeful, if we're plotting how to get back at somebody, how to hurt them like they hurt us, all that sort of thing, we're spending a tremendous amount of our mental and spiritual energy on an endeavor that can get us nowhere but negative results. And you are not going to feel good about the revenge that you've perpetrated on somebody else.
I think I totally agree with what you're saying, and I'm just wondering, is it possible for us, if we've been I'm going to use the word traumatized because I think there's a difference between righteous anger, I guess I'll call it, and anger that stems from, somebody cheating us out of $100 or cutting us off at the corner or something like that, as opposed to the trauma of abuse or losing a loved one. Say you have a child that's kidnapped and murdered. Say you have your spouse is hit by a drunk driver. Say you've suffered verbal or emotional or physical or sexual abuse. Those are huge traumas, and I'm wondering, is it possible for us in those traumas to separate the anger from the vengeance?
Okay, so when you and I agree, I agree. I mean, and I can sit here and pontificate and all that sort of thing, but my goodness, if it ever happened to me, would I be able to do what I'm saying everybody else should do? And the likelihood is probably in some cases I could, and in some cases I probably couldn't.
I think in our heads, most of us know what we should do. Most of us would have that inner sense that we've talked about before that would guide us to have an appropriate attitude in regards to it. So anyone who would believe in the Bible, right in the Bible somewhere, I'm sorry, I don't know where, but I remember from years ago, it says, "Vengeance is mine, says the Lord." That's in the Bible somewhere. So, and there have been several quotes along the same line from many people throughout my life that I have heard of, stating the same fact. So that would signify that there is a greater power than us that will exact the appropriate punishment for wrongdoing. I'm not sure if you believe that, or
if I believe that,
but it's another thing to let it happen. So I'll get personal. From my vantage point, I'm not there yet. I'm not at the point where I can. If any of you are familiar, Kesha just released a new song off her new album, and it's called "Praying." If you have an opportunity, Google that song, Google the lyrics. It's beautiful. And someday, I hope I get there. Someday, I hope I can say, I hope you find your peace falling on your knees praying. But I'm not there yet. I'm not. Also in that song, she says, there are some things only God can forgive. And that kind of resonated with me as well.
And that's probably quite true. I'm certainly not where I want to be on this journey, but I can say that I've started it. I think one of the things that I have found out, a couple of things that I've really found out that made some sense to me was there seems to be, at least for me, and I can only speak for me obviously, there's levels of vengeance, and the sort of I call them the minor levels of vengeance. Somebody cuts me off in traffic. Do I plot his demise over the next 10 miles on? No, I don't.
Probably not, but you might let your anger get away from you for a minute and maybe a few choice words.
It's interesting, but that I chose to look at it a different way. Somebody cuts me off in traffic, and my first response would have been honk the horn, get on his tail, give him the finger, so in the rearview mirror and all this kind of stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, where I got to was, that poor schmuck is in a hurry to get someplace. Maybe his family just got totaled in a car wreck and he's trying to get there before his little kid dies or his wife passes, or I don't know. I have no idea what's going on in that guy's life.
Maybe his time really is more important than yours at this point.
At that point in time. So why am I going to get all bent out of shape and plot my revenge on this guy when he's just trying to do something good in his life? I don't know. So I choose to believe, as often as I can in circumstances that allow it, I choose to believe in the good in people. And when I made that switch in my own personal philosophy, in terms of how I want to see the world I live in, all that vengeance and the stress and all that kind of stuff that was attached to it, I'm not affected by that anymore. So I know it works.
Yeah, you
You
know,
know?
I think that for me, I feel like what I would want people to take away from this, from my perspective, is I guess to be aware of the underlying part of anger. Um, it is totally true. If you allow bitterness and anger and resentment to have a home in you, it's going to eat you alive from the inside out. It will.
It does.
Um,
Yeah.
it's important to work with yourself, and it's important to have goals, to exercise forgiveness, um, even to the point of, like we just said, there are some things only a bigger power can forgive. Um, that's okay too, as long as you're not secretly holding on to something that's eating you up inside, like secretly holding on to vengeance in the back of your mind, having it there. You know what? Someday you're going to get what's coming to you.
Yeah.
Because that thought, maybe you're not plotting anything, but that thought, that's vengeance.
Yes, it is. And the point to kind of leave the conversation here, a couple of points actually. I hope we get a chance to talk more about this at a time, a future date sort of thing, because I think it's something that really does bother and confuse and confound a lot of people out there. It's a quality of life issue for me. To deal with it on this level doesn't mean that you have to forget what happened, what drives your anger or your vengeance or whatever it is that you're dealing with. This isn't about forgetting. This is about moving on, because when you move on from it, you lose the hurt and the pain that's associated with the vengeance. As long as you're plotting revenge on somebody, you're always going to feel the pain of why you're doing it. And you're never going to be without that pain. And if you want to live the rest of your life in pain, spiritual, physical, some cases, emotional and mental pain, just keep plotting somebody's revenge. How am I going to get him back? There's nothing that can come good out of vengeance. Nothing.
I think that's a really good point. I think it'd be great to chat about this further at some point.
Yeah.
If you've got any thoughts, if you've got any comments,
Get to us.
shoot us a message, comment below the link, whatever you feel comfortable with, and we'll talk about it a little more. So have a great week.
Thanks for stopping by.